Pro-urban envisions creating self-sustaining urban communities apt for contemporary living in a bustling metropolis, one that is functional, efficient, and safe given equitably to the people. After all, you don't have a city if you don't have people in it, so it all begins with people. Whenever we work on projects, we always make sure that our projects will be suitable for our clients. It is the same in making a city livable, especially in a busy environment.
A great city, in my opinion, is one with a good transit system, which can be utilized by the whole population, whatever class they may be. The system should have a hierarchy as well as orderliness for it to work. A city with greeneries, which can act like a breathing space, is also something that can lessen the pollution, which is more common in cities nowadays. All in all, sustainability and progression are the keys in making a city great.
I believe that a city with a rich culture and connectedness makes a great city. It is important that the ambience, the people, and the food are authentic in order to bring life to the city. It is also a big bonus if there are places inside the city where members can connect and come together in order to create a healthy community. Also, the availability of the different establishments should be a main priority so that the people could easily get their needs and wants. And lastly, in my opinion, architecture can also make a city great as it attracts more people, opens more discussions, and creates aesthetically pleasing surroundings.
When the project was introduced to us, our mentor mentioned a vision wherein we would create a development that is self-sustaining and self-adapting to everyday changes. We'll get to understand different behaviors of humans in different environments. We were tasked to choose a site that we think would best represent the different ideologies we've learned along the way. From the 9 different sites, we chose Pasong, Buaya. The site was familiar to us given that it is located in Cavite. It was also the only site that was outside the Greater Metro Manila, and we thought that it would be a nice challenge for us architecture students to create a community despite it being a total green land.
Well, eventually, I was really not familiar with the site. We were given ample time to choose, and quickly browsing through it, I saw that in the vicinity there are establishments and few recreational activities from Vermosa Development by Ayala Land, residential areas, and few neighboring agricultural land fields. Given that the site has an open green space, from then, on top of my mind, we could either push through in utilizing the area for agricultural amenities if the said land could have a reasonable yields, or to make use of it as a city within a city kind of development.
The site is in between 2 barangays, Pasong Buaya 1 and Anabu 1G. Pasong Buaya 1 is a barangay in Imus City, which is less densely populated than the barangays it is close to, due to it being less developed than the latter. On the other hand, Anabu 1G is located in Imus, Cavite and has been inhabited since the 90s by people working in the city of Manila. A big part of Anabu has been commercialized since then and thus making it more busy. The site is currently owned by Ayala Land as Vermosa, which is a development they aspire to offer diverse living options and plans to pioneer a new suburban lifestyle. There are plans to make it stand on its own with malls, schools, commercial spaces, sports complex, churches, etc.
With this being said, there are also problems that we saw with the site. The first one is about the site itself and the boundaries it has. As the site was mostly underdeveloped, there was no proper illumination and no proper proper roads, as most of them were not flat and not common roads. The next problem that we eyed was the paths were too narrow and it would be difficult for two cars to pass together. The site was also not accessible as there was limited transportation. The main road near the site, which is the Anghari, is also frequented by private cars and is a shortcut from Cavite to Muntinlupa. So during our initial studies, we thought that developing the site may actually cause additional traffic.
We really looked at the site from a lot of angles to really assess the pros and cons and to design an urban plan that would really be useful not only to the natives in the area but also to the newcomers. The next con that we observed was that there were less trees in the area, which means that the sunlight and the rain is not commonly covered. The site is also a few miles away from Taal volcano, so volcanic ashfall is a possibility in the area. The next problem was that there may be a lot of displaced people, but when we conducted our site visit, we learned that most had been paid to evacuate the site by the developer. After that, the next thing that we did was look for a looked at the plan for Vermosa, and we learned that it would be used as a typical or developed as a typical subdivision, which makes the promising site a waste. So we designed an alternate plan that would make the site used for a better purpose.
In assessing the site, we discovered different issues such as the lack of cultural and historical importance, as well as the site's lack of accessibility and walkability features. To further guide us, we created goals that would become the basis of our design. Our number one goal is to boost the present culture and integrate new ones in the community. The residents must become engaged from different initiatives and activities that are placed through the creation of socio-cultural development strategies. Creating accessible, comfortable, and safe streets for pedestrians was also one of our key objectives. We would want to increase the number of people using the streets both for walking and for cycling. Public transportation is strategically placed to accommodate a high number of residents and workers. We also want to reassure the safety and security of the residents by creating better measures for disaster preparedness and awareness, not only through designing roads that would pertain to street safety, but also through the zoning of the site. Which leads to another goal, which is the formation and promotion of passive sustainable design. What we envision is a development that would be useful for generations to generations. Our last goal pertains to creating opportunities when it comes to sustainable livelihood and employment that could also be seen in the different parts of the development.
In alignment with those goals, we predict a few opportunities for the people involved. Because of its proximity to the Vermosa development, Ayala will benefit from the site because of its new clientele and its traversability from the site to Ayala properties. The city of Imus will also be able to benefit because, along with the many open spaces and parks in the area, industrial areas like hospitals and transportational terminals will be present in the site, which not only benefit the residents of the development, but nearby neighboring subdivisions as well. But of course, the main people we wanted to affect with our project were the residents themselves. With our goals in mind, we wanted to give them walkable spaces where they could feel connected to people and proud to be a member of their communities, and spaces where they feel safe.
To make our site livable and sustainable, we created different strategies for the different areas we wanted to target. The first one is the socio-cultural development strategies. We plan to have a space for cultural exchange, presentation, and exhibition. We also plan to create communal spaces within structures and outside, and also create a community that resonates with the physical environment and present culture. This includes a high-functional and cost-effective plaza which would be situated near active-use buildings, as this would help members engage and come together, We also plan to make culture centers which can help the community learn, and public art installations can also be utilized to express culture. These installations can also be either interactive, passive, formal, informal, planned, or spontaneous to cater to the diverse activities of the area. For the environment development strategies, we opt to have parks and open spaces to enrich the quality of life. For the design, we decided to make it passive, sustainable in order to mitigate the harmful effects of structures to the environment. And lastly, is that we would apply smart technology to the site.
The next one is the economic development strategies. In making this project livable and sustainable, this includes increasing the employment rate for the residents and the non-residents by producing more jobs and more opportunities, developing trainings and programs for the unemployed, improving access to transportation links and connecting it to businesses, providing a better access to education for all ages, and expanding the building capacity. These are the strategies we thought of. Clearly, building a city within a city. On top of it all, in economic development strategies, we opt to have a successful city planning for a better return of investment, which can be attained by attracting outside investors, getting involved with the community, and having a long-term measurable goals. Last but definitely not the least is our spatial, zoning, and mobility strategies. For this part, the addition and improvement of pedestrian and bike lanes would make the site more walkable, sustainable, and livable, as it would aid convenience and recreation. Furthermore, it would benefit the environment in lessening air pollution. We opt to carefully design the public spaces, catering the users with inclusivity in urban street design amenities, creating more compact activities within the central nodes to have familiarity and community activated spaces. Likewise, the creation of mixed zone areas is also something that the site has. This type of zoning attracts people by having their necessities available in a walking distance parameter.
To further enhance our strategies, we created different parts of the city that would interact with one another while having their own different purposes. We created 5 main areas in the vicinity, namely the frontage area, the Working West, the Upper East Side Village, the Inner East Side, and the Central Plaza. The frontage area contains different institutional and commercial areas. This area mainly focuses on welcoming the residents as well as other people to the development. We created transportation hubs and utility offices that could be shared by people traveling along the Anghari and even the Vermosa. To also cater with the market of the site, we created commercial hubs, hotels, galleries, a sports field, as well as a convention center. Our goal for this part was to encourage people to enter the development's plaza while considering the relationship to the neighboring areas. It gives a rough estimate of 16,000 jobs and a user capacity of 98,000 people, with transportation hubs and convention center having the highest number of user capacity that ranges from 25,000 to 30,000 users daily. To solve the project's vision about sustainable livelihood and employment, we created the Working West. The Working West is divided into 2 areas, the Upper Working West and the Lower Working West. In the Lower Working West, we place schools, training centers, and different office buildings in the area, while the Upper Working West focuses on the mixed usage of buildings for both commercial offices and residential. Pertaining to the name itself, Working West provides opportunities for employment as it creates a rough estimate of 45,000 jobs for the Lower Working West and 75,000 jobs for the Upper Working West. The Upper East Side Village contains mostly different residential spaces such as single-dwelling houses, co-housing units, apartments, and condominiums. We also place different commercial spaces specifically catering to services such as water stations, laundry shops, public markets, and grocery centers. The Upper East Side Village houses almost 25,000 up to 40,000 residents. The development's important structures are located here since it contains the fire and police station, which is strategically located at the center of the site. It also has a hospital and a school with student dormitories. The hospital is strategically placed there for it not to be too far from the Anghari and could be used by neighboring sites. The area houses roughly 12,000 residents and creates 1,500 job opportunities. The Central Plaza is the main proponent of our design. Our goal was for people to use the space to better understand one another and promote cultural and historical awareness. There is a small creek running through the site and we want to utilize it well by creating community spaces around it. The Central Plaza has the capacity of handling 15,000 users in its indoor spaces and could range from 80,000 to 100,000 people for its open spaces.
Having open spaces like a public park in a community provides opportunities to enrich the quality of life for people of all ages and abilities. It provides a wide array of social, health, economic, and environmental benefits to individuals and to the community as a whole. Besides, the site itself is full of greens and we want to avoid cutting trees. The pandemic made us realize the importance of having an open space. Open spaces allow movement, especially within the dense urban areas. The lockdown caused discomfort and degraded the people's quality of life because their overall health is affected. The major issue that arose during the pandemic after the infectious disease itself is the compromised mental health of the individuals. It is a critical issue that needs to be addressed in our current situation because being stuck in our homes or being isolated, not being able to get fresh air and light as often as possible, limited physical movement, they significantly add to the people's stress. We have also placed commercial spaces inside the plaza and allocated space for food or market stalls for economic and social purposes. In this way, the Central Plaza will not be dead in a sense that it will be infiltrated by criminals in the future. After all, it is placed in the middle of a bustling city.
To make the Pasong Buaya development walkable, we applied Jeff Speck's principles, doing 4 things simultaneously. It being useful, safe, comfortable, and interesting. In the development, we have a total of 4 road typologies. First is the road type A or the primary road, which directly connects the Anghari road to the major establishments in the development. It has the largest width to smoothly accommodate the users from the main road to the secondary road. Alongside with the roadway are the bike lanes and the pedestrian walkways. To be followed by the road type B or the secondary road, in which it is the narrow version of the previous one, linking the primary road to the inner parts of the area. Road type C or the tertiary one, on the other hand, were placed around the residential areas. The road width is much precise to somehow create an interaction between the residents. Although we designed it to be accessible by emergency services. With that being said, the roadway is a shared space for different vehicles and bikes. And lastly, we have the road type D or the tertiary 2. This typology is only located at the central part of the development, in the vicinity of the recreational spaces. This is exclusive for the pedestrian. However, In circumstances, we also considered this road to be accessible by emergency services.
Going into the transport sheds along those roads, they were designed with minimal impact in mind. The intention was that this is another separate street furniture rather than a separate space. With that being said, its small footprint allows it to be flexible in being put beside these drop-off and pick-up areas and allows for pedestrians to walk through without interruption. The intent of the curb is at least 3 meters and is separated from the road, so it allows for vehicles to enter and exit and slows down oncoming bikers and vehicles.
We then designed a public restroom that would be situated in various spots in the central plaza. It is open on both sides so people can enter wherever they are. A waiting shed is located in the middle to provide resting place to the people who are roaming the plaza.
Visioning a dynamic space in a drop-off point, we place commercial enterprises like bazaars and stalls in the entry or exit points of the recreational spaces to either welcome you or to port you with a lively environment. Conceptualizing a multi-use parking space, we thought of incorporating an ornamental nursery garden in which the landscape plants of the whole Pasong Buaya development will be nurtured here. In time, it could also be alternated by yielding plants for a farm-to-table concept. Resting spaces and picnic areas are further integrated in the multi-use parking space. Beneath it is a reservoir for the rainwater harvesting system. The water runoff would be used more efficiently, recycling this harvested rainwater for utilities and maintenance of the whole project.
As we can see today, our environment is suffering from the different machineries, factories, and activities we have done, and thus has affected its inhabitants as well. It is really important to create a livable and sustainable city because as designers, we know how to mitigate these harmful effects and design with nature rather than against it. In designing structures, we should focus not only on the structure but also how it would affect internal and external factors.
Recently, there has been a shift of importance when it comes to nation development. That is that we look at our cities rather than our country as a whole. Because of this, it's important that we develop cities that will be able to stand the test of time and remain good spaces for everyone to thrive in. That's why making strategies that make the everyday life just a little bit better are the most important in the long run.
Our environment can affect our behavior. It molds the way how people act, feel, and think. Personally, I suppose that architecture and urban design is a field or a study and practice of medicine, as it heals something that might not be cured by any drug prescription. Identifying the concerns of the individuals when it comes to environment and management techniques are reasonable to deliberate to produce a more humane approach of the design and development.
I know going totally green in an instant is a long time problem already as the climate change accelerates. I believe that we can continue what the others have started against climate change, even if we are developing spaces as the population continuously increases. So along with that, we should be better in decision making. Also, we should always organize and discuss things thoroughly as we design projects for mankind and help sustain them environmentally, socially, and economically.
In designing, we must stand our ground while being inclusive and empathetic with the people around us. We must know how to balance all the different elements in the city. We should know the reason why we're doing things and who's gonna be affected by it. Designing is all about the total experience and the ability to adapt to its changing environment.